Hi Juan, how are you?
I'm good, Sergio. How are you?
I'm so happy to have you. I'm really excited. Like I was telling you earlier, I'm really excited because I know you're very busy with your clients and with your own podcast and you do collaborations too. So it's very good to know that you took time for us. I just wanted to tell you something. The reason, just so you know why I picked you when I reached out to you. I think that you're very approachable and you're very friendly. And I think that, there's a lot of information with mediumship around the internet, but I really wanted to bring someone in that has the right personality for people who have like a beginner's kind of eye to this topic. And I think you're the correct person. Like, again, you're very approachable and friendly. And I was like, yeah, he's perfect. He's a perfect fit for this. So, again, I'm very thankful for this.
Well, thank you. No, that's really kind of you to say that, and I'm honored whenever I can speak about this with like-minded people, like people in our community that
Yeah.
that enjoy this stuff, like you. It's always fun, and I love talking about this. So it's my pleasure.
Awesome.
It's my honor.
Yay, awesome. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Tell us a little bit about you, where you're located, and kind of like your role in the mediumship.
Yeah, sure. So, Juan Francisco, I've been a psychic medium, practicing psychic medium for 3 years, also a tarot card reader. And I'm based in New York City. Right now, I'm visiting my parents in Delaware, so I'm in their house visiting for a little bit. But I'm based in New York City, originally from Miami, Florida. And yeah, for me, I most of my time as a psychic intuitive worker is doing mediumship readings for people, mostly online. I have yet to do an in-person mediumship reading other than for a friend. That and also tarot card readings. So those two take up the bulk of my time. I also do have a 9 to 5 job. I'm a public relations professional publicist by day, and then the rest of my time is doing readings. Social media is a job also by itself. It's a lot.
Right,
I'm
yes,
sure you
I
know,
know.
Sergio. So it's whether between social media, doing psychic readings, the podcast that I have, Third Eyesight. But that's me in a nutshell.
What do you talk about on your podcast?
Yeah, well, what made me want to start the podcast when I discovered that I had the ability of mediumship, which I believe we all do. We can talk
Right.
more about that. Um, when it kind of happened as a surprise for me, I never asked for it. It just happened one day. And I thought, well, if this can happen to me, if it could happen for me, then maybe it could happen for other people. And also, there's that. That was one reason I started the podcast, so other people could know that this is possible for them too. But also, I just love ghost stories. I love the supernatural. I grew up watching like all the ghost shows and like the ghost hunting shows and scary movies. And I just love hearing people's ghost stories and the things that they've experienced that they can't really explain always scientifically or logically, but they
Yeah.
know it just happened. It happened to them, whether it's near death experience or remembering a past life, seeing their grandfather in front of them appear to them after he passed. I just enjoy those stories. So between those two things, letting people know that they too can are psychic, it's that, and also letting people share their stories. That's why I created the podcast.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like now that I think about it, starting to see a pattern in the people that I interview, and it's that they always tell me that they all enjoy like the ghost stories or anything like that whenever they were kids, and that's kind of how everything started. I mean, that's actually
Yeah.
the same thing with me. That's how it all started. It's like you wanna know, you're curious, and you wanna know why all the time. So I think that's kind of
Yep.
how it happened to me as well. So with mediumship. How, in the easiest words for someone that doesn't understand, right? How would you describe what mediumship is?
Mediumship, for me, mediumship is the method of connecting to those who are on the other side, those who are in soul form. So they could be those we knew in this physical life, the people we love, our friends, our family. Could be other people that we've been involved with in our life, connecting with the souls of those people. It could be also connecting for me also with ancestors, with spirit guides or soul guides, guardian angels, as well as connecting even with pets. This includes pets as well. And I don't often get pets, but when I do get pets, it's really because I'm a dog dad. My dog is not here, but I'm a dog dad. So it includes I believe everything has soul energy to it. But for me, mediumship is connecting with the soul energy of sentient beings like animals, people, human beings, as well as ancestor spirit guides, and higher energy beings as well. So that's what mediumship is for me.
Great. And I think a lot of people too, whenever they get introduced to this topic, they confuse a lot a psychic reading and a mediumship reading. It's so, I get that a lot because they'll somebody will book like a psychic reading and they want to connect with someone and I'm like, well, it's that's a whole different thing. So how would you explain the difference to people?
Yeah, I was just talking about this with somebody the other day, and even I used to be confused about it. And the way I see it after practicing for 3 years, and I'm still learning all the time, but the way I
Right.
see it is all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics have to be mediums. And I first believe that we are all psychic. I believe every single living being is psychic. And there's a reason dogs can sense things more easily than some other beings can, or we can. Children can sense things because as children, we are all born with psychic ability. And as we grow up, there's nature versus nurture. And we're taught, oh, that's make believe, or oh, so I want to first say that we all have psychic ability. What's different about being a medium or practicing mediumship is that's a specific way to channel your psychic ability.
Mm.
That being said, if you ask for a mediumship reading, you're asking to connect with the souls of people who have passed. If you're asking for a psychic reading, which is a little more generic, but it also mostly means that you're asking the psychic, the person that you're booking,
Mhm.
to read your present energy and something, the energy that is around you or your own energy. So usually when people book a tarot card reading with me, that is meant to be a psychic reading, and they come asking questions, as I'm sure they do with you too, about money, career, love life. There's a relationship they're in that they want to ask about, or they're making a decision with their family. That is asking me to read the energy of a current situation they're in, or the energy around their person, their themselves. Whereas if someone comes to me asking for a mediumship reading, it's the intention that I bring to it is to connect with someone they knew who has passed.
That's very interesting. You know, I don't really consider myself to do mediumship, but whenever I do my psychic readings, there will be times that the spirit will come forward. And I guess because I'm not developed in that sense, I don't get as much information, but I do get to see them, and it has been so clear to me because sometimes I know you, I'm pretty sure you have gone through this, but you doubt yourself, right? Whenever you do these readings. Um, and I tell the client like, okay, this is what I'm seeing. I go very specific on the colors, and they're like there was this client not so long ago. I told her exactly what this male figure was showing me and the colors, and she started crying because it was her father and the clothes that he got buried, like the exact same color and everything.
Wow.
But that's all the information I got. I think it's pretty cool when people can go beyond that, like actually send messages. I feel like for me specifically, they only want to be there to be acknowledged, but I can't pick up anything after that. But yeah, it's very interesting again because it's not like I'm having mediumship readings. It's just psychic readings, and then for some reason they just want to throw themselves in there. I guess they just want to have the opportunity whenever they can, huh?
Well, and the way I discovered, first of all, that's so cool that you had that experience.
Yeah.
And even if it comes in little spurts, like just to you, it may seem like something small and short, but it sounded like to your client, it was like, wow, that was very impactful for her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it could be a small reading, a long reading, it could be for a moment. Um, the impact is really what makes the difference, I think, when we're channeling souls of loved ones. But the way that I discovered my mediumship ability, I was doing a tarot card reading for a best friend of mine who is also a reader. And we did like during the pandemic, we were on Zoom and we were doing an exchange of readings with her and another friend of ours, three of us. And I did a reading for her and a card came up and I instantly felt the energy of her best friend that had passed away. I didn't know much about him other than when he died, um, and his name. That's it. Um, I think it was very limited information. But the way this happened was through a card in the tarot reading. I've never, maybe because I've set some very, for me, like firm boundaries. Like when I'm doing a card reading, it's psychic. When I'm doing mediumship reading, it's soul connection,
Right.
channeling. It hasn't happened to me like that in a card reading after that, but that's how it got introduced to me. And the way I see it is, I think anything's possible. I don't think we should Mm, I think we should only, it's not about limiting ourselves. I think we should not limit ourselves, but I think for the sake of like running a business and setting clear expectations for clients, it's
Mhm.
healthy for us to set boundaries. Like, no, this is the mediumship reading, this is a psychic reading. Because for me, if I'm doing both at the same time, I don't usually get my energy drained in readings. They actually energize me, but
Oh.
card readings tend to drain me sometimes. And if I add mediumship to that, it's like, oof. So I don't think we should limit ourselves if it comes to cards, whether it's you or anyone who's listening or watching. If you do mediumship with cards, that's fine too. But I
Mhm.
think in terms of like setting boundaries with clients and running a business, you have to know like how far do you want to go with mixing things, or do you feel comfortable doing mediumship readings this way? Would you rather keep it separate? It's really
Yeah.
up to us, which is the nice part. Like there's no limits, but it's also up to us.
Well, I feel like I need to make boundaries with the spirit himself. I'm telling you that because this whenever I do get these like mediumship impressions, it's never during the actual like reading. It always happens to me the night before, like before I go to bed and you're like with like getting
Oh.
relaxing down. I start thinking, okay, tomorrow I have three clients scheduled, and whenever I think of a specific client, that information will come in. I never get them on the actual reading. It's always the night before. That's why I doubt myself because I'm like, well, maybe it's not for her. Maybe I'm just thinking about it now. Then the next day I do it and it's always tears because it's so specific. So I'm just like, why do you guys come whenever I'm trying to sleep?
That happens to me too when I look at my calendar. This actually happened last week, and I noticed it. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I was looking at my calendar and I saw someone had booked me that day for some time in the future, and I saw their name, and immediately I felt this energy, like I saw the image of somebody, and that's I've learned now to say, oh, thank you, but not now.
Not now.
Just like this, very simple.
I'm gonna start doing
I
that.
find, yeah, I find that spirit and loved ones on the other side. I find that souls on the other side very usually respect our boundaries. It's just like, thank you so much, but we'll do this later. Do this during the reading.
Right. Now, would you say that people, whenever they go to you, would you say that they mostly look to connect with spirit, or are they most likely looking for psychic information? What do you tend to get more?
These days, I am getting more mediumship readings. I think when I started my business, it was just tarot readings actually, even though I had that experience with my friend.
Hmm.
Um, and of course, at that time, it was mostly tarot readings. When I introduced my mediumship readings for like the first few months, it was still tarot readings. I think I personally love doing mediumship readings. I like tarot, but I'm finding that I really, really, really love doing mediumship readings. So I think because people see me doing it more often, like on Instagram, on like
Yeah.
with live readings and stuff like that, and I talk about soul connection and loved ones on the other side. People tend to associate me with, oh, he's that's I don't want to sound vain, but like that's his thing.
Yeah.
um so I think they expect that more from me now, or that they expect that I'm more likely to do that now, which is great because I enjoy it. So these days it's mostly mediumship readings.
So I hear a lot from other readers that they get drained more from doing mediumship than tarot. Would you say that's your case?
Yeah, well, not yeah. I'm saying yeah because I hear that a lot too. A lot of people say that to me too. It's actually usually the opposite. Mediumship readings really energize me. Tarot readings, I would say I don't want to say drain, but they take up more of my energy, and I can't tell exactly why, but I can guess that in a tarot reading, because someone is asking me about, they're asking me a question about, it's usually a problem, right? It's money. What can I do with my life career wise? I mean, I try to stay away from these like, do they love me readings? That's for me, like I don't read those very well. But just
Hmm.
like generic love readings, dating and romance and weddings, and I feel like there is added pressure in my perspective. Like I feel like I put this pressure on myself, like, okay, these are life decisions that
Yeah.
they want to make. And I always tell people, like, I am not a prescription. I am not the best. Like
Right.
you are your best intuitive gut feeling. You have that gut feeling too. I'm just here to guide you or to remind you of what you already know about the situation, or to maybe bring to light a part of this situation that you didn't see before or realize before. But there's that added pressure I put on myself, like, okay, they're deciding whether they want to move or not. If I say something really wrong, whereas with mediumship reading, there's also that pressure because I want to make sure that they get the experience they want out of it. They hear from someone that they love very much. But for some reason, I don't put the same pressure on myself in a mediumship reading, and I don't know why that is. I think I like doing tarot. It's how I started all this work. But I just really, really, really enjoy doing a mediumship reading. It feels very fulfilling to me.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's the answer. It's just it's why it doesn't feel like it's draining to me, a mediumship reading.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like again, whenever I do get those connection with spirit, it's always I always take whenever I do get that meditation impression, I usually leave it to the end. Like I do the whole psychic reading, and then at the end, I was like, okay, well, this message just came through, and that's the best part because they start crying, and obviously like they're sad, but it also makes me happy because they're also crying because it brings them peace. There was this other lady that I talked to, and I think she was expecting someone else to come through, but I don't know. I think she was expecting like her dad or her mom, but it was the mother-in-law that showed, and it all made sense because the whole reading we were talking about uh, family problems, but with her husband's family. So her mother-in-law is connected to that issue, right? So she was like, "Oh my God, like no, it's definitely her because the mother-in-law showed me like some sort of like a dress or like cloth, something like that." And I told her that, and she made the connection, and she went to her closet and she showed me that her mother-in-law made her a dress. She left her like she actually made
Oh,
her a dress for her because she has also been praying to her mother-in-law because again the problems were with her husband's family, so she had no one else to talk to on the other side to deal with that. So that was very very fulfilling for me too. Like it was very like I end those and I'm like wow, like the tarot reading was great, but that little 5 minute talk was what really really lifted me up. So I think that was very fulfilling. So I totally agree. I a little bit more than the mediumship readings again, but I don't
hmm.
go that much in depth as you would probably.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, and it's
so
different person to person. So, oh, sorry. I think
yeah,
there was a little bit of a lag in the connection, but I think
mm,
it's each person and what fulfills you and what you find enjoyable. That's all that matters when we're doing this work.
yeah, I agree with you. So I know every psychic or medium works different to connect with spirit. How do you personally connect with spirit before you do your sessions?
Yeah, I usually the way I guess I'll go through like the steps. So before I do a reading, like if when I have a mediumship reading, what I try to do like 5 to 10 minutes before, I do burn white sage, and I do a prayer just to let only positive energies in, and then I meditate. So I do try to meditate before every reading, at least for 2 to 5 minutes, just so I can quiet my mind and or just like relax my mind a bit and not like get my head out of a space of thinking too hard. Because I find that when I'm thinking too hard during a reading, that's when I start to, for lack of a better word, like contaminate the information that's coming through, and I
Yeah,
start to overthink things. So, for me, it's very simple. Just I burn my sage just to remind myself to pray for positive energy and bring the positive energy in, and souls from the light. And then I meditate, and that's kind of like my signal to myself, like, okay, I'm ready to do a reading. Sometimes it doesn't all go perfectly. Sometimes I meditate for less than I want to. But what I've been finding is a lot of times my intention seems to do enough with when I go into a reading. And I think intention is really important. So it's not so much like everyone has to burn sage, everyone has to meditate. It's really about like, what's the intention and are there practices you want to partake in before your reading to help to foster that intention, to remind you of that intention. And for me, it's burning sage and meditating. So that's how I
mhm.
usually prepare for a reading.
Whenever you meditate, like before your reading, do you get any information for the readings?
Sometimes it doesn't happen often.
Mhm.
Um, Once in a while, I'll start to feel the energy, like a certain age that the person passed at, or maybe it's like a symbol or an image that they show in my head that is something that belonged to them or something that is a fact about the person I'm going to speak to that will validate the presence of their loved one. It doesn't happen often though, but it happens once in a while. Yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. And to keep that connection with spirit, I know there's, again, like you say, person to person, everyone's different. There are a couple of people that follow a certain lifestyle. For example, they are vegetarian or vegan, or some people just fast whenever they do readings. Do you feel like you have to follow any particular lifestyle, or do you feel like it's not the case for everyone?
Yeah, here's where I'm going to be a little bit maybe unpopular.
Okay.
um, I don't meditate every day. I would actually like to go back to meditating every day. I used to do it the I like I mentioned I work Monday through Friday at a 9 to 5 job and I used to meditate on those days every day and journal and I loved it and I want to go back to it. But as of right now, I don't meditate every day. Um, the way I see it, I don't think there's a magic formula to live life to be a good psychic or a medium. I think it's really, you know what, if anything, I'm also in therapy. I'm very open about being in therapy. If
Hmm.
anything, my mental health and how I treat myself mentally has been a big key in how I've developed as a medium. In addition to, like, I do go to Mediumship Circle. I try to go to Mediumship Circle once a week or once every other week.
Oh, great.
I try to read books on this topic too. Not every book I read is on this. But in terms of a daily practice, I don't have a set daily practice. I just kind of, I don't know what it is. I think I just am so used to connecting with spirit and the readings that I've had that I personally I don't feel like there is a rule like you have to do this every day to continue being a good medium. However, I think for the long term, it's good to have some kind of like a circle, a spirit circle
Yeah.
or a practice circle, or maybe you have a mentor. Those I definitely recommend. But I mean, I have a cheeseburger maybe once or twice a week. I do like going to the gym a lot. I like cardio, I like weightlifting, but I don't think these things are, you don't, I don't believe you have to be like fit and a vegetarian, this is my opinion, but fit and a vegetarian to be the best medium. I think it's about how do you treat yourself. If you feel like you treat yourself well, I think that reflects in how connected you are to the other side. Because
Yeah.
I used to not treat myself very well. And it's interesting that right before I started delving into more therapy and also just like talking to myself better, right before all that happened, I discovered this ability. And I think it all happened for a reason. So if someone were to ask me like, what should I do daily? I think just be kind to yourself, and just make sure you're checking yourself when you feel like you're talking badly to yourself. I know that sounds really cheesy, but I would say my mental health even over my physical health, honestly. If my
Mhm.
mental health were not in a healthier state of mind today as it was last year, 2 years ago, I don't think I would be um as developing of a medium as I am today.
Yeah, I mean, if you really think about it, and it just came to my mind right now, but I mean, you could be vegan and be in a bad mental state. That's gonna affect that connection. So, yeah, I don't think I'm with you, man. I don't follow I don't have like a strict diet or anything like that. I think there's life is all about balance, honestly.
Hmm.
But I think people whenever they think about mediumship or psychic abilities, they imagine someone that's like praying every single day and meditating every single day, someone in a mountain by the sun, just, doing all of that. And
Yeah.
it's just not possible with our lifestyle at the moment. I'm like just like you, I have a 9 to 5 job too, and things get on the way, family happens. So I think it's very hard. I think in a perfect world, maybe that would be the case, right? To be more involved in your own spiritual development, but it's so hard to do it in reality nowadays. But I love that you share that story because it just shows that that's not the case. You don't have to be like that in order to develop yourself psychically or your spirituality as well.
Yeah,
Um,
and you have to know yourself. Like one thing I want to say, like for example, dinner and a medium, dinner and a mediumship reading. Like I can have a reading at 8 p.m. with dinner 1 hour before. Some people they don't want to eat anything because their stomach is rumbling after they eat. And for me, my stomach isn't that sensitive, but for someone else who maybe there's maybe someone who does a reading hungry and their belly is rumbling. That's a distraction to them. For someone else,
Right.
they eat and their belly's rumbling. So yeah, just have to know yourself. If you know that you should not eat within 3 hours of a reading because you're going to feel full and it's going to distract you, then pay attention to that. It's really about what feels good to you.
Okay, that's awesome. So I know you said this earlier, but can we go more into detail? Would you say that anyone can be a psychic or a medium?
Yes, I think I'm gonna say psychic, but it that could turn into mediumship too. Um, I think we can all. Well, let me rephrase. I think we can all be both. I think it's about whether we want to develop these skills. So, like I said, I think we're all psychic. I think like a lot of us when we enter a room, we feel the energy, we feel good vibes, bad vibes. Maybe not everybody. I think it depends on how tuned in you are. And I know people who do not like this kind of stuff. They don't like the psychic stuff. They don't like the mediumship stuff. They think it's negative. Like I grew up Catholic. I grew up around a lot of Catholic people who think this could be very negative stuff. It's like the devil's work. But yet, some of those same people will swear to me that they dreamed something and that predicted something in their life
Yeah,
and they can't explain it, but they know it happened. So I think that even if we're not necessarily tuned in, like this ability is there, it's just waiting for us to discover it and to practice it. So psychic ability, I think we can all do it. I think we can all also develop as mediums. I think it has more to do with desire. Same thing with being psychic. So it's kind of a weird answer to your question. It's like kind of back and forth, but I think most of it has to do with how much do we want to develop this and how much do we have
yeah,
faith in it. Because if we try to develop, but we just want to keep doubting it, it's going to hold us back from wanting to delve into it.
100%. I
Yeah,
100% agree. You know, it's very, very interesting that you tell me that I agree with you, and I want to talk a little bit about my a personal experience that I have with this. I do believe that everyone can be psychic. I think every single person has some kind of psychic experience or some kind of connection with spirit. But from my mother's side, my grandma, she was very, very Christian, extremely Christian, and my grandfather was too. However, my grandfather, ever since I can remember, he has been having conversations with people that have passed, people have touched them, or spirits have touched them, or like little things like that. Everything. There's the biggest story that I can remember from him was that he was painting or something out in a ladder in the stairs, which is already dangerous. And guess what happened? He fell, but whenever he fell, he didn't fall down the stairs. Somebody pulled him. He says. So
wow.
that was that. He's always been connected to spirit, and then whenever before my grandma passed, I remember he was telling her, like, oh, like my mom visited me or so and so visited me, and she would be like, oh my God, stop, shut up, no, that's not true, blah blah blah. Like she would shut him down, right? Because I think it went against what she believed in, and it also I think it was she was also scared of it a little bit. However, towards the end of her life, maybe the last 3 weeks before she passed, she took on that role. Now it was her saying, "Oh, I'm seeing my mom. Oh, I'm seeing my dad. They're coming for me. This and that. All of this stuff." And I always thought that was very interesting because I was like, no, even you in your adult life, where it's where mostly everyone kind of wants to like not deal with any spiritual stuff. Um, Towards the end, like you still had the connection because at the end of the day, you're a spirit too. So I
Mm,
think that's always that stays in my mind how it's always the oldest, like you say, the children always see spirits, right? But it's always all the people that are getting closer to the death as well. That's how I
yeah.
explain it to people. It's always in the moments that you're mostly, what's it called, like innocent per se. For example, like a kid or a baby or someone young, they just came in from the spiritual world, so they're very clear. They don't have any biases or anything like that. They're pure, just like animals. Animals are pure. They're pure souls, so they have that connection, and then they start having biases and the doubtness and all that stuff, and they just get their mind just get busy with the day-to-day stuff, so it kind of goes away from that. And then whenever you get older, you're getting closer to that but going back to the spiritual world, and you're older, like you don't really care about life anymore, you have nothing to worry about, so again your mind kind of starts connecting to that. So
Mm.
that always stays in my mind. It's something that I always think about whenever I think about this topic. Um,
And thank you for sharing that. And it's very common within the month, maybe sometimes 2 months, but especially within the month of someone's passing, that they start to see their loved ones because their loved ones are preparing them to transition. It's very common.
yeah,
And that's so special that you got to experience, or that your grandmother got to experience that. It's very special.
yeah. In fact, that's that. Honestly, her saying that stuff gave me peace because again, that started happening 2 weeks before. So as soon as she started saying that, I was like, oh man, it's like it's coming because again, this is
Mm,
something that she would never say. So that's how
yeah.
I knew it was starting to happen. So yeah, that's my story.
Yeah, no, that's incredible, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. I've never experienced someone who is on their deathbed or in hospice. I've never experienced someone telling me that, but I've heard many stories, especially a lot of hospice nurses have a
Yeah,
lot of stories about
they know
their
they experience this every
patients. Yeah.
day.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
lately, I don't, it's just my family. They're getting older. A lot of my family members are getting older and they're passing. 2 weeks ago, my grandfather passed, and it's again just like my grandma from last year. They somehow know because with this grandpa, I talked to him maybe about 2 weeks from now, or before, yeah, 2 weeks from now, 2 or 3 days before he passed. And I was like, hey, Grandpa, how are you doing? And he was like, well, I'm dying. And I was like, no, don't say that. Like, your birthday's like in 2 weeks. Like, I'm gonna go and celebrate. Like, we're gonna be together. And he told me, well, I won't be here, but you come and celebrate.
Mm,
And I was like, okay, that's just him saying stuff, right? But no, he indeed passed like 2 or 3 days later after that. So I was like,
I'm
man, it's like
sorry.
somehow they know. It's
Yeah,
very, it's incredible, and this is why I love this topic because honestly, to a lot of us that go through stuff like this, it brings us peace.
it does. It does.
Yeah. Sorry, we got a little bit sad.
No, that's not. No, you're expressing yourself. And again, I'm sorry for your grandfather's passing, but
Thank you, appreciate it.
I love that he told you, even if I'm not here, you come celebrate. I
Yeah,
think that's
and
beautiful.
indeed, I'm gonna do that because that's what my grandpa would have wanted. He was a very happy person, so
I
that's what
love
he
that.
wanted. Okay, let's go ahead and change subject.
Okay.
Who would you say in your path with spirituality has been influential to you?
My godfather, my mom's brother, my uncle. He's also my godfather. He I grew up in a very spiritually progressive family, and he was especially very progressive. Um, he introduced me to so many concepts like past lives, past life regression therapy, um, just the fact that we are all energy, that we are souls, we are all energy. Because I grew up, even though my parents are very spiritually progressive, I went to Catholic middle school and I went to a Protestant Presbyterian Christian high school. And I went through like a really big, like born again Christian phase. I was a very strict Christian. I was in the closet as a gay kid, and I was a very strict Christian. So all this stuff I used to believe was really bad, and now I'm doing it. I always joke, I'm a gay man and I'm a psychic, so I'm very opposite of everything I grew up with in high
Right.
school. So my uncle, the whole entire time, he's also he's a gay man himself, and just that him being an older gay man to look up to, and also my godfather, who was very spiritually progressive. It just once I changed as a young adult into being more open to things spiritually. Um, he was just such a support spiritually for me, and he recommended me to me a book called Conversations with God by the author Neil Donald Walsh. Those books changed my life. They opened me up so much. There are 3 or 4 or 5 books maybe in the series,
Mhm.
and the first one was written in the '90s, I think. Just incredible books. Not easy to read because it's a lot of information, but um, I credit my godfather, my uncle, for being a huge influence on my life, and he's the one that would talk to me about psychics and mediums, and he isn't a practicing psychic or medium, but he was always fascinated by all of it. So I think having him growing up really made me feel more comfortable just with all these concepts.
Wow, well, props to him for getting you into this because you're here
Yeah.
now. So that's great.
Yeah.
How would
Yeah.
you say that this connection with spirit or this path has changed your life?
Oof. Well, 4 years ago, if you would have told me I would be talking to you as a practicing psychic medium, would have thought you're crazy. Like that's only for people on TV. Like I grew up watching like Teresa Caputo, Long Island Medium, Tyler Henry, um, John Edwards, Sylvia Brown, all these people growing up, and I thought that oh, this is something that special people have, you know?
Right.
Now, I love Teresa Caputo. Not everybody is a fan of hers, but I really love her. I've seen her live maybe 4 or 5 times.
Oh
She
my
is the
God.
real deal. She's the
Man, you know
real
what?
deal.
She was just here like 2 weeks ago, and I really wanted to see her, but I was so late that I would have gotten like a crazy seat. But next time I will go see her. I can't believe you've
Oh,
seen her. That's
it's
awesome.
worth getting a nosebleed back seat. It's worth it. Even if she doesn't, and I always tell people, don't go expecting a reading. Just to, if you're open, just sitting and hearing other people get read, you feel healed. And so
Yeah.
I've seen her many times in person at shows. I watched her whole TV show. And yes, she has the hair, the nails, and people judge her for that. But she is really, and I've seen Tyler Henry live as well once
Oh,
in
wow.
a theater. He was really great. And each medium is different, but Teresa Caputo is just, it's like a telephone call for her. It's so easy for her, and it blows my mind. Now, why am I saying that? Yes. So, growing up watching someone like her, I thought, oh, mediumship, like this kind of stuff is for people like her. She was born that way, and only some people are born that way. Now, I think she was born with a very heightened ability,
Yeah.
but for me, realizing that I also have the same ability, it's not the same as hers, it's not the same as Tyler Henry's, but it's mine. Um, it just I know it's gonna sound cheesy, but it made me feel a little more special. Because I was delving into something that is mine that I could own, but also it's not just me. It's most of the work is spirit, and that's also it also humbles me. And I think that um, also I grew up with a big fear of dying. I still have a big fear of death. You would think that me doing this work, it'd be like, oh no, I'm ready to die anytime. No, I don't want to die anytime soon. I want to die when I'm, wait, knock on wood, very old. But I still have my fears. I grew up having a lot of panic attacks as a child, thinking about dying. Like, what is it going to be like, and what's on the other side? And once in a while, I still get those panic attacks laying in bed at night. It's just I can't change it. But this work, I feel like just as much as I am on a mission to help people connect to their loved ones and knowing that they can connect with them themselves too without me. I'm also like on this mission to almost like an investigator, like what is happening on the other side? Like and so 4 years ago, with this fear that I have, that's one way of living, right? But then having this fear and also doing this work, it has changed my life because I finally get to channel this fear I have of dying and put it into trying to do good for others with spirit instead of just sitting here worried about what is it like on the other side. Oh my god. um, that's how it's changed my life. I get to take this anxiety that I've dealt with all of my life and actually channel it and use it for something that is helping the person in front of me in the reading, but also it's helping me. Like a reading is helping me just as much as it's helping the person in front of me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, within your scope of work, would you be able to share a personal memory that is special to you in connection to spirit or mediumship?
Yeah, this was before I started doing readings for the public. I was in a mediumship circle. And what's funny is I think it was maybe June 2021. I wanted to get readings from mediums. I was not aware. None of this happened yet. That we're talking about my career and my path. Um, so I'm looking on like the app Meetup. I don't know if you know the app Meetup where people create groups to do
Oh,
events
yeah.
and like
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So I was on Meetup already, and I'm like, let me look for maybe there are groups where mediums give readings to people. So I find this group. It's called Mediumship Circle. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then I read it, like, oh, this is for people who think they're mediums and want to develop. That's not for me then, because I'm not a medium. So then September, October, I do this reading, this card reading for that friend. That experience happens where her best friend comes through in the reading, and I'm like slightly freaking out in a good way, like, oh my God, this is crazy. How's this happening? And what do I do? And then I remembered that group that I joined, I thought by accident. And I never went to any of their meetings or their group things. But I went back to it, I thought, okay, this just happened to me with my friend. Let me join this group. So that I just want to set the context. Like I've been part of this mediumship circle since October 2021, I think. Um, and in one of the first few months, I'm doing a reading for somebody, and the way it works is they used to spotlight somebody on Zoom, and then anyone who is getting anything just chimes in. And it's one by one. Each medium goes. So I decide to speak up, and the way I used to read, I don't do it like this now, but when I would look at somebody's video on the Zoom, I would start writing a bunch of things, and I start writing wedding, necklace, like she's wearing a necklace and there's something about that necklace that's really important, and I feel like I'm talking to her father, and that her father wants to tell her, I'm going to walk you down the aisle. Now I'm sitting here, before I speak to her, I'm like, okay, if I say all this and it's wrong, this is not going to look good. But if I say all of it and it's right, it's going to get very emotional. um so I felt very stuck, but I decided, let me just go for it. So I told her, instead of saying, "Is your father passed?" I didn't want to be wrong. I said, "Do you have a father figure?" Grandfather, father, uncle, yes. And then like, okay, father. And so I asked her about, um, what did I ask her about? Whether she's single, engaged. She said she's engaged. And then I start crying. And I don't cry in readings like I used to. I was started crying. I was so new to all of it that it was all so emotional and so surprising to me that all
Yeah.
this was happening. Because so I started crying because like, okay, this is gonna be a very powerful reading for this young woman. And then she starts crying because she already knows it's her. She knows it's her father. She tells me she's engaged, and I start crying. She starts crying, and I told her, "Well, your father says he's going to walk you down the aisle," and she just loses it.
Aw.
And then I tell her, he wants me to talk about your necklace. So what's something? Did your father give you that necklace, or is it something, or did an ex give it to you? And there's something, I don't know what's up with the necklace. And she told me that the necklace that she was wearing in that day during this reading, um, it was the necklace that her father gave to her mother while they were dating, and now she has it. Um, and that was just it blew my mind. It still blows my mind, and not all readings are like that. Not all my
Yeah.
readings are like, oh my God, how did you do it? And there's not all readings have people crying. It's actually very rare that someone has that reaction in a reading with me. That's when I know that, like, okay, all the stars are aligning. Sometimes you bring something up that doesn't make sense for them, but it will later. Sometimes you bring it up and it makes them cry. And in that instance, I was only 3 months into practicing as a medium. I was not doing readings as a business yet. And I'm having this experience, and I just won't ever forget it, because I think that's when I realized, pardon my language, but like, oh shit, I think I should start doing this more.
Yeah.
Because it feels good to do it for somebody. And maybe I can help somebody feel less alone. And she got to hear from her father right before she's about to get married. Like that's really important for
Yeah.
many young women, for people who don't have their
Absolutely.
father with them. So that was a
Yeah.
very long story, but
No, I
that
love it.
was,
Thank you for sharing
yeah,
that. I feel the same way. I feel like every time that I remind myself every time that I'm reading that I am just here of service. I'm just kind of like that medium person, literally, that medium person
yeah,
between the spirit and the client, and I'm here to make your life better or to give you peace or to give you guidance. And that's what makes me feel good at any reading. So I always keep that in mind.
yeah.
Uh, so, for the common folk, I guess, how would they be able to know that a spirit is trying to communicate with them?
Yeah, it's so different person to person, but I'll say that a lot of people share that they knew they could talk to dead people, let's say, since they were a kid. I that wasn't me. However, when I was a kid, I remember I would see a flash of images of random things in my head. Like I would see this old, I'm gonna say this, it was an old white man in my head. And I'm like, and now I think back, well, I wasn't related to that man. I don't know who that man was in my head. And I still remember the image of this old man. Um, and now I think, oh, maybe that was spirit trying to communicate with me. So the way I wanted to share that to introduce my answer because I think when we enter a room, for example, and we feel something we know is not coming from us, like it's not something we're creating, it's a feeling, it's an image we see in our head, it's something we see in the room that we know it's not something we're creating ourselves, you just know it's from outside of you. That's when you can tell that there is an energy present or that something is trying to communicate with you. um, for example, one time I was getting a massage because my back was like terrible that day, and I got a massage, and I'm laying down, with little, on the table, the massage table, and I'm closing my eyes. The massage is happening, and I see this flash of a couple in a waiting room, and they heard news that I did not want to hear. Um, I don't know the building I was in. I don't think there was a doctor's office of any sort. Maybe what I saw was connected to the masseuse that was doing the massage for me. I don't know, but it just came out of nowhere, and I didn't recognize the people that I saw, the couple that I saw in that flash of an image. I don't know who those people were. Never seen them in my life. So when you get those flashes of images or you feel something emotionally, because spirit and energies can communicate with each of us very differently. For me, I feel it. I see images, but I also feel emotions and personalities. For other people, maybe they hear things. It could be ringing in your ears. You hear your name being called. You hear random words.
Hmm.
Um, it's just when you feel like it's not coming from you and it's coming from somewhere else. Like, where did that come from? And
Mm.
it's also, in my opinion, it's not fear based. I
Hmm.
remember, I don't know if you're familiar with like Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop, but there's a lot of debate around Goop and Gwyneth Paltrow. But she had a show where one episode of the show was all about psychic energy and psychic mediums. And she asked this Laura Lynn Jackson, who's a medium I love. She asked her, how do I know if my kid is going out with their friends and I start feeling afraid that they're going to get into an accident? How do I know that that is me predicting or me just being afraid? And the way the psychic medium put it, that I'm going to put it too from what I remember her saying, is when we get like those flash images or the sensations, the feelings, emotions, when we enter a room and there's a lot of fear, I would just like let yourself sit with it for a moment before you take an action to run away. Because maybe we're afraid, like you said with your grandmother and your grandfather. When your grandfather would say that he saw his father, his relatives, she would get afraid, right? Maybe she got afraid. We don't know. Maybe that was what she was feeling was fear. Sometimes these things can happen to us and we get afraid and we think our house is haunted. But no, maybe it's just grandma trying to say hello. It's not a
Right.
poltergeist, you
Yeah.
know? So sometimes there are things, I do believe there are things in the spirit world. I believe there are low energies that can fool around with things and we don't want them to. But for the most part, when we get these intuitive feelings or we feel that someone is present in the room, I would just think twice before jumping to fear that it's a scary thing. So there's a lot to it, and that's why it's so helpful to develop ourselves, because then we get to feel like, okay, the more we practice it, the more we develop it in a group or with a mentor, we start to learn how do we receive this information, because for
Mhm.
other people maybe it's not emotionally, like for me maybe it's
Right.
just images. It's very
Yeah, I
different.
think it's different for everyone, and you're validating a lot of points that even myself I went through. Like for me, I don't know why, but for me it's always like whenever I know it's not me, it's from like names from people that I know. So like I'll be in the car with my friend, and I'm like, do you know a guy named Marcelo? And he's like, yeah, that's my uncle that passed. I don't know anybody named Marcelo. It's such a specific name. I was like, well, Marcelo. He's like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's my uncle. He passed, and then I was with another friend, and I think I told him a female name, and oh yeah, that's my grandma. And then what I remember the most that I was like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. I was at the gym working out, and whenever I was working out, African American man, a black man, kept up in my mind, and I'm like, what the heck? And I look next to me, and then there's this black girl next to me, and I was like, I am so sorry. This is gonna be so random and like this is so weird, but this is what I'm getting. And he's like, and she started crying. She's like, oh my God, yeah, that's my dad. And she told me this. She told me, "You're not the first one that tells me that. I feel like he's trying to talk to me." He's like, "You're not the first one that comes up to me and tells me this." So those
Wow.
moments are the ones when I'm really like, okay, because I don't think about this stuff. I don't think about these names. So if it's like that, that's how I know it's not me, right? It's something else.
Yeah, because
Now,
I think we know the difference between when we make something up and we don't.
yeah, but you know what? I'm gonna be honest. It takes a while to recognize that
It
because
does.
I think at the beginning for anyone it's so hard to not say, oh, it's just me or I'm just making that up because we're human and our brain is made to to be logic. So that kind of gets on the way. So it does take time to develop that, to develop to that sense. But we eventually get there. I think as long
No,
as
you're
you have
right.
faith and you believe and okay, I'm sure you'll get there. But I think that doubtness does take a while to go away.
It does, 100%.
So with that being said, why do spirits want to communicate with us?
I think they want to communicate because they see that there is a need that we have. Um, when I don't get communication from my loved ones very often. And I think it's because there is nothing in my connection with them or my relationship to them that needs to be resolved or addressed, which I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed to say that. Not a lot of people have that privilege or that blessing. A lot of people, unfortunately, their parents pass, their grandparents, or even worse, a child pass, their children pass, and there's a lot of unresolved trauma or things that that could or should be addressed for those in the physical world to move forward with life with happiness or to move forward with healing. And I personally believe that spirit knows when they need to come through. Sometimes it's not their time to come through, and spirit knows the timing. We don't. We want. I wish my grandfather could speak to me every day, um, but he doesn't. But I know he's there because of my faith, and that's enough for me. For other people, I think it's time and place. Sometimes you're not in the right time or place to receive something from a loved one, um, because that loved one knows when it's the right time to come through. And looking back at my life, there was a period of my life when my grandfather was communicating with me through signs and symbols more often than now. And now that I look back, I'm like, oh, at that time of my life, now I see why it happened then. I needed it then. Today, I don't really need it. If it happens, I love it. I welcome it. But I think that's the reason spirit comes through because they know that something needs to be addressed or communicated for the person just to feel more supported.
Hmm. Now, I think you might already had said this or answered this, but I have this question that it kind of always stays in the back of my mind, and I always wanted to ask someone that with someone that has more mediumship experience, but I love everybody, like all my family members, and I feel like within my experience, I have been able to connect with them or see them. I saw my grandpa like 2 days ago here in my room, and he looked very upset just because we have family stuff going on. So I get that, but I have a very, very, very strong connection to my paternal grandmother. She was very special to me. She basically raised me when I was a kid. And I've always grown up sad for this reason. I feel like out of all my family members that have passed, she's one that I can never connect with. And I always want to know why. I always want to talk to her or I don't know, just have some kind of like connection, but I just I don't get it ever, and I always wonder why. It's been forever. She passed away in 2004. But I'm at the time where like wow, my life like I've become a man right since I was a kid. I was like 10 at the time. And I'm just like wait, like why can't I see you? Like I want to talk to you. I want to see how you feel, how like how I've developed myself and stuff like that because again, she was like a mother to me. But do you know why some spirits just never come through?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I can feel if I know it sounds weird for me to say out loud, but like I can feel the emotion. So I know that was not easy for you to share. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Um, It's a disappointing answer, but I really don't. And I wish I did because it's really hard when someone tells me, and people have told me in the past similar to what you just shared, like, why aren't they coming through to me? Why, like, I pray, I talk to them and I don't see signs. I don't, and I really can't say because I've done the same. I've also, well, what's interesting is when I was getting all the signs and symbols a few years ago from my grandfather, I actually was not trying. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't communicate with them and pray to them.
Right.
I have yet to learn what spirit's timing is. And when I do, I'll let everyone know, because that would make things so much easier. But I really have faith in spirit knowing when a specific person has to speak with us. But just know that I don't like saying that to you because if one of God forbid one of my very close loved ones I have today passed tomorrow, you better believe for the next whole year I'm gonna be wanting to hear from them and see them,
Right.
and I would be very disappointed if it didn't happen. Um, so just know that's not easy to say to you, and
Yeah, I think I that's
yeah,
always an answer that I've been looking for, and again, with all my other family members, I dream of them. I've seen them. I've heard them stuff like that. But with this specific grandma, it's impossible. I can tell you this like because I've been trying this for the longest. Like there's only one dream that I've had of her my whole life. One, and I have a memory, and it's so interesting because I in the dream I asked her, I was like, where have you been? And then she answered like something that she would have answered like if she was alive. She's like, "Oh, I've been busy." That's all she told me, and I was like, "Okay." And that's it. That's all she said. I'm like, "Okay, I guess you're busy like doing spirit stuff. I don't know." Um, but yeah, it was just I'm sure there's a lot of people that have the same question that I have, right? And I just wanted to maybe get that answer. But obviously, I feel like even for people that have years of experience with mediumship or psychic abilities, there's stuff that is just meant to not be known or to be a mystery. And I think that's one
Mhm.
of those things. We're not supposed to know everything, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's hard, but
It's
it's
hard, yeah.
something it's even I've learning to accept something that I can't explain that I don't have the answers to. Um, and it's very hard. It's hard.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, I now that you have this space, is there any specific message or anything that you would like to tell our viewers today?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for saying that. I personally the way I see psychic ability, mediumship, and readings, I always want people to know that if you're booking a reading, um, I just want I want my clients to know that I'm just here to remind them that they already have the power. It's like I've been using this metaphor recently and I really like it. It's like when you make yourself a sandwich, tastes
Hmm.
good, you make it well, it tastes good. But when mom makes it or a friend makes it for you, it just tastes different. And it's the same sandwich, but it just tastes different. And you can go to a restaurant and get your favorite dish and then learn how to make that exact same dish. But for some reason, it tastes different than going to a restaurant. That's how I see going to a psychic and a medium. We don't need to go see a psychic or a medium, but when we want to get a different perspective from outside ourselves and get the sandwich from somebody else for a change, just to experience it differently, I think that's when it's beneficial to go to get a reading. So I just like to remind people that you're all psychic. We are all psychic. It's about developing it. It's half of it is your curiosity. The other half of it is your drive and your interest, and I don't know, you don't have to agree with me, Sergio. It's okay, but you don't need someone like me. You don't need a psychic to live your life happily. We are here as a part of your path. We are not the path. We are not here to tell you how to live your life. We're here to remind you how maybe you want to live your life, but you're not open to what you want yet. Um, and with loved ones, I'm here. I always tell people now when they say, "Oh my God, you're incredible, you're reading the," I said, "Well, listen, you brought your loved ones that are not here. Like grandma's not here waiting for you to talk to me, and grandpa's not here waiting for you to talk to me. You bring your loved ones with you. The only way I can read you with your loved ones is because I'm talking to you, because you're the one connected to them. So I'm just here to remind you that you have the connection. And even if it doesn't feel like you do, keep praying and keep having the faith that they're there, because I do think they listen.
Beautiful, beautiful. So for people that want to find you, contact you, book a reading with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, thank you. I'm at juanfranciscospirit.com, and my podcast is called Third Eyesight, and it's been running for almost 2 years this October. And then on Instagram, TikTok, I am Juan Third Eye, and you can find me on Facebook too, Juan Francisco Psychic Medium.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, this is a wrap up. I want to say again, thank you so much for taking your time. I know you're on vacation right now, right?
So I'm working from my parents' home, but yeah, no,
Okay.
it's all good. But no, I'm it's a quiet night.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for taking your time to speak with us. I feel like our conversation was very, what's it called, like very organic and very natural, and I really appreciate that. You even made me feel emotional at some point, first time it happens. So
Oh,
there's
me
that.
too. I felt emotional too.
Yeah. But thank you so much. And we will keep in contact.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.